A few years ago, I went to hang out with a new group of people. It was an event where I had some shared interests with these people that I found on Meetup. With these kinds of new group encounters, I usually run a constant background check when I'm there. Is my eye contact too much? Did I interrupt somebody? Am I talking too much about a singular topic? By the end of the night, my mouth muscles are usually sore from smiling too much. And usually I pull into the driveway at home, sit in my car for a few minutes, and think to myself, I can't keep doing this, constant checking and adjusting. Immediately, the thought I have afterward is, but I also can't stop. Because masking works. Masking got me through that event and won me some new acquaintances. It's got me through job interviews and first impressions and my husband's family holidays. Something I have learned is that certain parts of the adapting were draining me, and some parts are just skills that I've learned that over time have taken less energy from me. Hello, my name is Kara. I'm a first-time podcaster and a longtime friend, and this is Fluent in Friendship. When you lump all social adaptation into one word, masking, you can lose the ability to tell what's actually draining you and what isn't. Everything gets treated as equally draining, so you're left with try to stop all of it and deal with the consequences, or keep doing all of it and burn out. In my opinion, both of those options are not good. In episode 3, we talked about predicting the total cost of a social event and planning recovery around it. This episode goes one level deeper. Instead of asking how much will this event cost me, you're asking what specifically is draining me, and does it have to? There are 3 modes of social adaptation. They look similar from the outside, but they cost different amounts. The first mode is automatic. These are where you execute skills you've practiced enough that they barely register anymore. You learn them deliberately at some point, and now they are low effort to execute. It's like driving a car where it takes a lot of effort to learn up front, but over time you get the hang of it. The second mode is strategic. This is when you deploy skills that you've learned on purpose because the context is worth the energy. You know that these skills can be draining and that you are performing, but you've decided that the trade-off makes sense for the job interview or conversation with a friend. You will feel the cost afterward, maybe even for hours, but you choose to spend your energy there. This third mode is survival. This is where you're performing constantly because you don't feel safe being yourself anywhere. It can be a reflex that you can't shut off even when you're safe. This can be a mode that really destroys you because you never get to stop and rest. If you're hearing this third survival mode and recognizing yourself in it, that recognition may come with some grief. Let it. You may be seeing clearly for the first time that this is where you're at and that you may need rest. Now, I want to walk through what actually shows up in an energy audit because social skills, quote unquote, is vague and doesn't really help you sort anything out. There are 5 areas where most masking energy goes. And as I walk through them, notice which ones you recognize that you utilize. And for each one that you recognize, ask yourself, do I barely notice doing this? Do I choose to do this when it matters? Or can I not stop doing this even when I want to? The first category is expressions and eye contact. Arranging your face to match the conversation, holding eye contact for what feels like the right amount of time, suppressing a reaction you're actually having, like forcing yourself not to look confused or bored or too excited, monitoring whether your face looks engaged enough. For a lot of people, this category alone eats an enormous share of their energy, partly because face monitoring has a feedback loop. The more you check, the less natural it gets, which makes you check even more. The second category is voice and speech patterns, pitching your voice differently than feels normal, modulating your tone so you sound warm or interested or calm, controlling your pace so you don't talk too fast, adjusting your volume to match the room. For some people, their entire speaking style around other people is a constructed performance. For others, their voice is actually one of their most natural channels and barely costs them any energy. The third category is conversation management. This is really where a lot of the cognitive load sits. It includes behaviors like tracking when it's your turn to speak, preparing things to say while someone else is talking, scripting greetings or small talk in advance, monitoring whether you've been talking too long about one subject, deciding when to laugh, figuring out when a story is over so you don't respond too early or too late. If you've ever left a conversation mentally exhausted, even though nothing stressful happened, this category is probably why. The fourth category is body and movement. It includes things like turning towards the person speaking, managing your posture, suppressing stimulations, or fidgeting. Things like leg bouncing, hand movements, rocking. Figuring out what to do with your hands, calibrating how close to stand to people. Some people spend a lot of energy constructing a physical presence that looks relaxed. The fifth and final category is internal monitoring. This one runs underneath everything else. It can involve things like reading the room, tracking whether you've made someone uncomfortable, calculating how you're being perceived, replaying something you said 30 seconds ago to check whether it landed right or wrong. This is the background process that makes social situations feel like cognitive work, even when the conversation itself is easy. Take a second with each of those. Some will jump out as things you barely think about. Those are skills that are in mode 1. Some you'll recognize as effortful but chosen. That's mode 2. And some you might realize you've never been able to turn off. That's mode 3. When I did this exercise, I realized that managing my facial expressions was something that really drained me. Meanwhile, turn taking is basically automatic for me. I barely think about it. And knowing this changes how I prepare for things. Sometimes I try to actively stop managing everything equally, and I protect the resources that were actually scarce. Skills can also migrate. A friend told me my small talk seemed completely natural, and I almost laughed because small talk used to take everything I had. It had moved to mode 1 without me noticing. And this is also where episode 5 connects. If a skill is a high-cost skill, partly because you're forcing it through a channel that doesn't work for your body, an alternative form might move it from mode 2 to mode 1 over time. Your energy audit and your channel audit can work together. Self-assessment has its limits, though. Research on masking consistently shows that people deep in survival mode, or mode 3, have the hardest time accurately reading their own energy drains. Because when everything takes effort, everything feels like baseline. If you're having trouble sorting which skill goes into which bucket, that information may be helpful for you to get an outside perspective from a trusted person or a therapist. These people can show you things that the self-audit can't. Your high-cost skills are for contexts that matter enough to spend it on. A job interview, a conversation with friends where the outcome matters, and you can choose to be strategic there, and you can be strategic about spending time to recover afterwards. Episode 3 covers how to plan for that recovery. There should be a context where you are able to have that level 1 interaction where you don't have to spend much energy at all. This is usually where your closest friends or your partner exists. These are the places where you're accepted as you actually are. If you don't have any of those yet, building one matters, probably more than anything else, especially in this tier, maybe in this series. And I mean that. If every context in your life requires performance, then there is no place of rest, and rest is important. A few signs you've crossed in from mode 2 strategic into mode 3 survival. If you can't turn off the performance, even when you're somewhere safe, if you don't know what you'd actually say or do without the stress, if you're exhausted but you can't point to the thing that's draining you, if you feel like you resent people for not seeing the real you but you haven't shown them, or you feel like you're faking it in every relationship you have, find a safe context to take the performance off gradually. It is a skill we learn in Tier 5. Before your next social event, something lower stakes like a group dinner or a friend party, go through the 5 categories and rate the specific behaviors that apply to you. Write them down. You're building a picture of where your energy actually goes, and most people have never looked at it this closely. Then, before you walk in, pick one high-cost behavior and give yourself permission to drop it for the evening. Some behaviors are easier to drop than others. Forcing eye contact while you're listening is usually droppable. So is scripting small talk with people who already know you. Suppressing a harmless stim like bouncing your leg or actively managing your facial expression in a group setting where nobody is watching your face closely is another option. I would encourage you to start with whatever feels lowest risk. See what happens. See if anyone notices. In my experience, and this is consistent with what the research shows, people notice far less than you think they will. If you have someone you trust who is also at that event, you can ask them later, "Hey, did I seem off tonight? Was there anything I did really well?" Their answers might not be helpful, but they may provide some feedback. Sometimes the thing you think are obvious performances are invisible to everyone else, and sometimes what feels easy to you reads as effort from the outside. That outside perspective can be helpful. If you did the audit and you're still exhausted afterward, the issue might be not which skills you're using, it might be the total load. I would encourage you to go back to episode 3 and check whether you're planning enough recovery time around the event itself. If you can't sort your skills because everything feels effortful, you might be in mode 3 without realizing it. Find a safe context. Sometimes you can sort your skills just fine, but still can't stop performing even when you want to. A therapist who understands neurodivergent masking may be able to help you to find that safe place or be that safe place for you. That new event where my jaw was sore from smiling, I met up with them a few more times over the next couple months. It was the same people at the same place. And I knew which parts of the social performance were skills that I owned and which parts were draining. So I dropped some of the expensive ones, and nobody really noticed. Sorting all these skills into different energy buckets doesn't really solve everything, but it helps you to know where you put a lot of energy in and what you can turn on and off. It's helpful to figure out what's actually adding value to your conversation and what's actually just draining you. Drop what you can and find at least one place where you don't have to perform at all.